Hello guys, good evening. Welcome back again to this yet another tutorial. So guys, in this tutorial we are going to learn about how to get perfect measurements. And our first measurements, we are going to start with the armhole. We're going to start with the armhole measurements. So a lot of people have been asking me how to get perfect measurements for the outfits and all that, depending on what you are doing. Either you are sewing for a male or you're sewing for a female. First, you need to know how to take your measurements. Okay, so there are usually two methods, common methods that people use to measure. Okay, so there are people who measure their measurements. Let me use this wrist. Hopefully you guys can see. I'm going to use my wrist so I can show you. There are two ways to take your measurements, okay, on your client or on yourself, even when you're making an outfit for yourself. So you can either take the measurement tightly, okay, like this. Let me say I want it to be like at 7, like this, the way I'm holding it like this. If I want it to be at 7, okay, so if you take your measurement tight like this without any allowance, that means you're going to add the allowance when you are drafting, okay, or after dividing, and then you can add in the allowance. Before you cut the fabric, you add in you place your measurements and then you add in allowance, or you can add allowance while you are measuring. Okay, so you can, depending on how you sew your clothes, whether you use 1.5 or you use half an inch or maybe 1 inch. But I would always advise that if you have really added more allowance, the most should be like especially the sewing allowance, the most should be like 2 inch, like that is the most. Okay, so you can either take it loosely just like this. Okay, so when you take it loose, that means these two fingers should pass through. Okay, these two fingers should pass through your the tape, like this should pass through even when you're taking it on a client. But if it is tight, so that means to be at most like this one finger, because it will be tight, that actually even a finger might not even pass through, but at most it can be one finger. Hope you guys can see, just like this. So if it is at 7, it is tight, then that means I will add my allowance. Okay, hope you guys can see. You see this, that it is tight. If I put it at 7, it is tight, only one finger can pass through. But if I put it like at 8, so this is loose enough, and my fingers, so if I take my measurements when they are loose like this, so that means I do not need to take to add in any allowance when I am drafting on my fabric. I will just place this and that will be it. Okay, because I will have added the sewing allowance. Okay, so that is how you take your measurements. So depending on what measurements that you have taken for your customer, or depending on the measurements that you have, so when you are making the armhole, so if you're making for like a male client, okay, if you are making for the male client, the other easiest way, apart from you first measuring the round of the armhole, okay, the round of the armhole, you can what you do, because actually when you are a tailor, sometimes you can think you have taken all the measurements of the customer, but again you end up forgetting certain measurements. So when you have certain measurements, you can use them to cover the ones that you have forgotten. For example, if you're making for a male and maybe you forgot to measure the round of their armhole, okay, like the round of their armhole, you guys, you know, the round of the armhole, the round of the armhole, what you do, you take the shoulder, Okay, you will take the shoulder, you take the shoulder measurements, what you had for the shoulders. Okay, the shoulder, what you had, the shoulder, what you had for the shoulder, so divide it by 2. So sorry guys, I realized that you might not be seeing with a pen, so I took out the marker. So I was saying, if you are making for a female and maybe you forgot to take the shoulder measurements and you want to get if you forgot to take the armhole measurements for your customer, and maybe you took the shoulder measurement. So if you took the shoulder, it is shoulder, let's talk cover. So if you took the shoulder measurements, divide the shoulder measurements by 2. So let me say that if your shoulder measurements that you took are like 16 inches, so you're going to divide 16 by 2. Okay, 16 by 2, which is going to give you 8 inches, and this is what you are going to use as your shoulder, as your armhole depth. Okay, this is how to get your armhole depth. This is what you use as your armhole depth. Okay, and if you're making for a female, now this is for a female, or this is like the standard measurements. So for the female, if you forgot to take the armhole measurements, but you have the bust measurements, okay, so for the female you're going to use your bust measurements, okay, like the bust circumference measurements. So divided by 6, and then you plus, you will add 1.5 for sewing allowance. For example, if you maybe took your bust circumference measurements and it was like let me say 40, so you're going to divide 40 by 6, which is going to give you 6.6. So if you add 1.5, okay, it's going to give you 8.1, and this will be your armhole depth. Okay, so you guys, you all know that you cannot run away from math. So people used to think that tailoring is for people who have failed school, who don't have what, you know, like who don't have what to do. Like, this is your last option, you always have math, so you have to know how to come up with these calculations. All right, so I'm going to demonstrate a little bit of how you can come up with this armhole on your drafting paper, okay, or on your pattern. So I'm just going to use this very paper that I have here. Okay, all right, so I can imagine that you let's imagine that you have already taken up your armhole. Okay, like so this is your neckline. Okay, so this is like your neckline. We all know how to draft our basic bodies. So if this is your neckline, and then of course you come down a little bit here. Okay, you're going to come down here. This is, let's say that the end of this paper is, this is your shoulder line. So you're going to remove the 1 inch from here like this. The reason why you do that is because our shoulders are not straight. Okay, our shoulders are a bit slanting, so that's why we always remove we go down by 1 inch. Okay, you can also go down by 1.5 depending on what you're making, but the standard one is 1 inch, so just go down by 1 inch, just like this. So we are going to use this to base on and get our armhole depth. So let's say that you got let me say 8.1 or maybe 8, depending on what you have gotten. So you're going to come down here and okay, just because my paper is short, so let me use 6 depending on what you have gotten. So because I don't want to go all the way to the end of this paper, so I'm just going to show you if you got like maybe 6 and this is your shoulder slope, okay, sorry, and this is like your armhole slope. So you take this line just like this, okay. So where this your armhole line is stopping, it is going to also work as your chest line. This is what we call the chest line actually, okay. This is what we call the chest line, not the bust line but the chest line. So this is our chest line. I'm going to name it from here. This is our chest line, okay. So after getting this chest line, what you're going to do, you get half of this shoulder, okay, half of this armhole from the shoulder slope, half of this armhole line. So when I used 6, so half of it, mine will give me 3. So if you got like 8, you're going to use 4. If you got like 9, if you got like 7, just divide that into 2 and get that. So mine, I just for demonstrating purposes, I used 6. So 6 divided by 2 is going to give me 3. So this is what happens. You are going to go in, depending on the customer that you're making for. If you're taking like for small measurements, like small, if someone is small, you can go in by 1 inch, okay. If someone is like medium, you can go in by 0.75. This is 3/4 inch, okay. And if someone is maybe like if someone is like large, this is actually this is like the UK size. So you can use 0.5. And then if it's like extra large or extra large, so you will use a quarter inch. Quarter inch, this is like 0.25, okay. This is 0.25 inch. So depending on what you are using, so maybe if I'm making like for a large person, the person is large, and if the person is large, so I'll go in by 0.5. This is half an inch. So place your tape just like this and mark your half inch. Go in by half an inch. So remember, we have this point where we connected our shoulder slope, okay, and then we have this point, and then we also have this chest line, okay. So what you're going to do for you to get your the armhole curve, you can either use your free hand, or if you have a curve ruler, go ahead and use your curve ruler to connect these points, to connect all these points together, okay. So make sure your curve is connecting. So actually before you can actually connect all the points, so for you not to just connect your curve to sit on this chest line, for you to be accurate, you get your bust, the measurements that you got on your bust. Usually the bust measurements, you can also use them on the chest line, okay. So if I say that if for example, if your bust measurements were like maybe 9 or whatever it is, but this is for just demonstrating purposes, maybe if I got like 6, depending on what you got on your bust, you can put the same measurements on the chest, okay, for you to be accurate. So you connect these 3 dots together, these 3 points from here, the shoulder slope, and then this, and then also this other point. You can use your free hand, you can use a curve ruler if you have one. If you don't have one, you can go ahead and use your free hand. As long as you connect the points together, that is all that you need, okay. Okay, so just go ahead and connect these points together. Wow. Okay, I went a little bit off, but yeah, so just make your curve. So remember this, it is not always a must that you have to go in by half an inch, depending on the size of the person that you're making for. This is what you do. So yeah, you can use this. This can be your guide to see how you can go about this part. Okay, I think that is it for the armhole.